Welcome back, everybody, to the Hammerdown Festival YouTube channel. And today I'm sat with Dave Hill from the legendary Demon. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Harry. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Thank you for joining me. I've got loads
It's
of
my pleasure.
questions that I want to ask you this evening. There's so many things that I could ask you. And I wanted to first start with the movement that your band was part of, the new wave of British heavy metal. I just wanted to ask, why do you think the movement has had the longevity that it has and the real dedicated core fan base that it seems to have?
Yeah, I think it's because in some ways, it's become of age. Where people, it's been long enough since it happened, and obviously there's always been quite a lot of bands around that survived it initially.
Mm.
Because I mean, I've got a book somewhere that says there was 150 bands from that period. I don't remember all those bands, but so I think one thing's added to another. Younger people have got into it now these days. That's quite amazing. But I think it's because it followed on from punk in Britain, as it were, and then it became the sort of rock, the new rock thing, and I don't know. I mean, it's a bit like timeless thing, isn't it? It's a bit like blues or something. Someone said 40 years later, about the blues artist or this, that, and the other. And I think it's it's done the sort of mileage. And I mean, we do a lot of festivals. We have done because we never really packed in. We just kept going. And then it picked up again. It sort of really did die after 82, 83. Obviously came the American invasion and then thrash and as things do. But and it was always showing up years later. And like I say, we did festivals and then they started inviting bands that were from that period. I mean, some had obviously finished, but they got back together and because of this interest. But I think it spawned a lot of great bands and it's worth listening to and worth knowing about.
Yeah, I think it's an important part of musical history. It was
Certainly is. You
yeah.
summed it up in one.
There we go. So for bands like yourself, as you mentioned, lots of bands did survive that time period. And last year you put out your 14th studio album, Invincible. And I wanted to ask how you feel your sound has evolved and developed over the time that you've been together.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the problem of that is me, because I grew up, I grew up listening to Deep Purple, listening to Sabbath, of course, and Hendrix and all that stuff, and then Pink Floyd, big fan of, definitely David Bowie. And the thing is, for me, as a young person collecting their material, most of those bands never did the same album twice.
Yeah.
Especially people like Bowie, which, I know he's not a rock man, but I mean, he did change a lot of things. And when you hear stuff on the radio, you think, wow, he just kept turning the things out and they were different. And all I ever wanted to do with Demon is obviously we started and, on the back of, as I say, punk and Deep Purple had happened and those 70s bands. And but I never wanted to make the same album twice. So we did the first couple of albums, which were similar, Night of the Demon and The Guest. And then we moved a bit with The Plague, which is which is more a different subject, but we brought in keyboards and, so it was something that, I never wanted to make the same album twice. And perhaps if we'd have had a 5 million seller on the second one, we'd have had 14 of those albums. But no, seriously, it's, I've always wanted to make something different. And I'm quite proud of that, even though, and we kept going, we kept making albums and we picked up on the market in Europe that we knew was still on, and while we'd had some success from the early days, we did well in Germany and France and places that the early albums sold well. So we got out there, we played, and then we put different albums out with different companies abroad, which kept us going. And for me, as I say, it's back to the days of if you know Pink Floyd, like Dark Side of the Moon's nothing like Wish You Were Here, Wish You Were Here is nothing like the Wall. And like I say, with all those other bands, so that's all we wanted to do is just keep making different music. And I suppose 14 albums later, we've done that and survived to this point.
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask specifically about my favourite track on last year's album, which is Forever 17. That's obviously a song about, looking back over your career. You talk about your children in there. And I want to know, was there like one defining moment in the last couple of years when you were writing the records that struck you about the career that you've had that made you then write that song? Where does that song come from?
Well, that song comes from. I mean, the last few albums I've written it with Neil Ogden, the drummer. I mean, he's been in the band 20 something years, and I think the last three albums, the majority of the stuff we had written, and after COVID, we got a lot of material. Neil, myself,
Yeah.
and basically we had been featuring an album called Taking the World by Storm, which is got an album called Time Has Come On, but that album's 40 years old. But we did play it again some years ago. And Neil said to me, there's a track, Time Has Come, and it was about when I worked and did the early stuff with the late Mal Spooner. And it was a tribute to him. And it was at that stage. And Neil said to me, he said, well, why don't, because I'm sort of 20 years older than everybody else. He said, well, why don't you bring yourself up to date and let's do something. And I said, oh, no, I don't like all that stuff. But anyway, funny enough, we'd got a track, a sort of backing track to that. And somebody asked me in an interview, he said, how do you feel when you make music? And I said, and I actually did say a couple of years ago that I like to go in with that same fresh approach as though I'm 17. I want to feel the same. Wow, yeah, let's get in. This is a good song. Let's make it the best, and let's do the best gig ever. And I was always able to draw on that. And Neil said, well, we have a song called Forever 17. So and that was it. And then I put things down and in it, and that just said, in a career, it took me to places I've never been. And I think, well, the words. I especially when we did the last album, it felt 17 again, and it was the only way I can inject what I'd always done into it. And it was the same with the band. We did that album, came out of COVID, and we were dying to record something. I don't think we were going to do another, so we did it, and there's a lot of enthusiasm because we could get into the studio. And but yeah, Forever 17. I'm glad you touched on that, because the interviews I did with Invincible, a lot of people started saying, "Wow, what's that one?" And so that's basically the story it's bringing. It's something I didn't want to do, but I ended up doing it that way. But quite proud of the track.
I think it's a very, very honest song. You talk about a
Yeah,
lot of very, personal things. I think it's a great song. I like it very much.
thank you very much.
Talking about, the career that you've had, I wonder if you could share any favourite gigs that you've had and I know that's a big question, right? But if you've got any particular standout moments on tour and on stage over the years, what would they be?
I think there's various favourite gigs from different territories.
Yeah,
When we first kicked out and kept it going with a lot, we're obviously in Europe all the time.
yeah.
Germany on many occasions. I mean, we've done some. Germany was one of the very first to sort of have festivals from
Okay.
day one. That they still do. Classic rock festival and rock odds, and they're a great people. I've always got on with them. I mean, I know there's jokes about the sort of towels on the beaches, and I often tell that to them. But they always, the PAs are fabulous at festivals. The same teams I've met so many times, like friends, and just some great gigs there. But I think one of the real top ones was last year, because we've been going 40 something years, released all the albums in Japan. I got absolutely dozens and dozens of magazines from Japan. And every time we meant to go, something happened. This is going back 20, 30 years.
Wow.
And COVID stopped it. And then just after COVID, they had one of their leading politicians, which was very rare, was shot dead. I don't remember it. That was just after in Japan. So we couldn't go then. And so last year it came along, and eventually, until we got on the plane and that. But when we got there, I mean, it was in the sports hall. We did 2 nights, and these people turned up. And it was just amazing, because the ones that had booked as a company, the first day we got, I mean, it was a working week, but they took us around the old town, and I mean, they looked after us absolutely wonderful. And but when we got to sort of do the gigs, everybody turned up. I mean, there was things that people have got spanning 40 something years because they hadn't seen us, never been there. And I was signing stuff, and I thought, what the heck's this? It's like because I never had every single thing that you get released in another country. Had the albums, not necessarily different singles. And Japan always wants something different anyway. They always ask, can we have a track? You just talk about Forever 17. And we did a bonus track for them. They didn't want a bonus track. I said, why not? We want one that you'd recorded, but do it differently. So we actually stripped down Forever 17, just an acoustic. Sounds great. I must send you a copy of that. And it's just like, the live lounge room with just an acoustic with piano. And so they had that and they were happy. And but it was just an amazing 7 days, and the people were absolutely wonderful. Got off the plane and, oh, Mr. Hill, And a lot of the guys there, though, the people, I actually seen them in Germany. They do travel over when it's festival season.
Wow.
And, but it was like, it took me. I came back, and my wife and children, grandchildren said, "What was Japan like?" I said, "You're gonna have to give me a bit of time." And I said, "Just flown there and flown back in 7 days, done 2 gigs, done interviews here, there, and everywhere." So that was a fabulous gig. I mean, there's been ones in Britain. I think it must go back to the very early days with Demon. I think playing the Marquee one of the first times we did a sellout night on the Taking the World by Storm, and I used to crawl in the back with a latex suit on and horns. Used to crawl around the back through the drum riser and get into this sort of grave. When we got leaves we collected from the park around the corner in London. So I got in, got the lot on. No, I'd done that, sorry, and we'd rehearsed it. Everything was fine. So we went off, and when I was due on, I got the suit, the lights went down. And what had happened, they pushed the drum riser right to the wall. So I couldn't get in and come out.
Oh, no, after all that.
So it was like Monty Python. That's it. Get the thing, get me. And I was standing there, packed out 300 people in the Marquee, got these horns on. You couldn't see me because the roadie used to have a torch for me. And I said, I can't get in. Where the hell do I get in? And it was up to the wall, you see. So they pushed it back in the dark. And I got in. And I tell you what, it was the hottest night. I mean, we just had some. I remember a latex suit I'd got on, the horns for the first 3 numbers. And when I got out the grave, I felt like I'd been, a diver in the sea. I was so heavy. And I stood up, and there was people in there. There was a lot of French and everything. And people keeling over because it was that hot. And I thought, I'm going to go anytime here in this latex suit. But I got out. But I mean, the story, there's so many stories. But that was, at the end, it was an amazing gig. In Korea, they took us back to our hotel, and they did a bit of a do telling everybody we were big in Japan. Everybody was big in Japan. I had no idea it was the first album. Yeah. And it's just one of those that great things we did. It wasn't the most comfortable gig, and it was all sort of wrong. But I mean, it was just a great memory when you look back. But there've been so many. I mean, we first time we went to America, and we played in a place called the Cricket Complex. I mean, they don't play cricket in America. And it was this big place, and it was like, all the death metalers, all this. And so people turned up to see us, and it was in New York. It was the most hilarious gig, Cricket Complex. But I mean, I think everywhere we've been, there's a special gig,
Oh, that's great. Are you doing the grave thing at Hammerdown, or?
No, I did it about. We can't do it the same anymore because what you got to think. I mean, that's 40 odd years ago. And,
yeah.
I mean, if I get in one now, I might not want to get out. Might be close to the other end now, but we did the album some years ago because we got asked to do the first 2. So basically, I was made up and everything else, and like I was in Japan, somebody made me up for those things. But we haven't gone back to doing that yet. I mean, for the latex suit, I mean, it's in a club in Stoke where we live, a club called Club 11, which our guitar player owns, and it's in a big plastic box, and
Cool.
you can view it there, you know. But no, we're doing loads of those numbers and things, but definitely not.
So what's next for Demon? Because correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure there was a post on the Facebook page a couple of months ago of listening to some new music and stuff, right? So I don't know if I've
Yeah. I mean, what happened? Funny enough, is we'd written loads of stuff, Neil and myself, through COVID, and for the first time ever, we actually had loads of stuff to choose from. And since then, since we've done the album, which it's doing really, really well for us, and Frontiers have been great because obviously I did interviews with everywhere last year. I did interviews with Russia, and they got, what was it? Something major city. It was in Moscow, and this magazine every month they do 80 odd thousand magazines, and they knew every single thing about Demon, and it's just quite amazing. And it was on similar like we're doing now. But I mean, I did. We travel most places, but I did the interviews they got were just virtually worldwide, and they're still releasing stuff. I mean, we've done the album came out as a double red vinyl, but they sold that out, and now it's coming out next month as a double blue one with a bonus track, which is a new track. So, but it's continuing. There's a lot of interest in the album, a lot of mileage, and we've had some good sales. But yeah, we have got. We're thinking about what we've got. We've got quite a lot of new stuff, which we're really happy with, plus some that we didn't choose last time. And so yeah, there's plenty in the can to do. And as far as gigs, yeah, I mean, next week we're in talking of Germany again. We're in sort of near to Hamburg again. The festival there, open air one. We did a couple early in the year. And we've had a lot. We've done Scandinavia. We've virtually done all Europe, and we went to Greece. I'm in the crowd in Greece. I'm mad. Athens is. I mean, it was like Beatlemania. I've been there for about 15 years, and I did it. Look it up sometime. There's a thing on the internet, and it's called Dave L, and it's Greece, and it's from the street to something or other in Athens.
I've watched that interview several times. It's a brilliant interview.
And I tell you what, that didn't show you the street, but it's full of people, and they're just staring there at me like, and then all it does is show me, and then there's a shop, and they all street, and every time I mention one number, there's a cheer. But I tell you what, I mean, you may have seen some of the footage there. I mean, It was absolutely rammed to the ceiling. And as I say, I mean, they go mad there, and just walked on. And to be quite honest, they could sing every song. It was what an occasion. And we've actually been booked back again. There's a festival in Thessalonica, and I think there's also another one in Athens again, and they're in October. So we're going back there. We've done Italy a few times this year. We're going back to Italy in September, and they want, can you play the early stuff and can you bring the head? I said, oh, well, I better get it repaired because one of the owns is. But what we normally do these days, I haven't got the head with us for Saturday, is we pass it round in the crowd at the end. And I say, it's like a party piece. People have the photos with it.
Oh, that's great.
And they're all there, photos taken with the ad. And so, I mean, there's still plenty in the can. And hopefully we'll keep going as long as we can.
Good. That's what we like to hear. Dave, I've got one more question for you. And we've been asking all the bands this in the interviews. If you were to build, Dave, your dream festival lineup that Demon would appear alongside, I want you to give me 6 bands, acts, artists that you would love to play with.
Well, as a kid, because I'm very old now, I was fortunate to see Hendrix. And, I tell people and they say, what? How old are you? I said, well, I'm very old, but I saw him, and it was, I remember reading a statement quite recently from Eric Clapton, and he said, when Hendrix came over, somebody insisted you go and see him in the club in London. And somebody said, what did you think? He said, it changed my life forever. And I think
Wow.
when I saw Hendrix, I thought, wow, it's quite amazing. So, but I mean, any of the greats for me, it's I have played on Sweden Rock some years ago when Ronnie James Dio was alive, and I can't think what they call now. He joined Black Sabbath, didn't he?
Yeah.
And what they call Heaven and Hell or something. Yeah, right. We played with them on Sweden Rock, and they were just fabulous. I mean, Ronnie was great. You know, he's only 5'2", but what a singer! And you know, we had a bit of fun at a few festivals because he would wave and we'd wave back and stuff. And but I think to like to play with, I mean, I obviously love to play with Sabbath. I think one of my all-time favourites is I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan, and to have to been on the same as that, you know. But there's so many. I mean, you know, I mean the greats of today like Metallica and you know, but we have been fortunate enough to have played with most of my heroes on festivals. You know, everything from going back to Jethro Tull to Aerosmith to Guns N' Roses and Sweden Rock. We played there so many times.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to Lynyrd Skynyrd, one of the best bands we ever played with at
Wow.
Sweden Rock. They were stunning. I think it was a bit of a cabaret. They threw things at the end, and it was. But they were absolutely what a band. But I'm just so happy that I've managed to play with most of them.
That's pretty
Probably
cool.
one of my heroes, but been nice to play with Bowie, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's not a bad history there, mate. That's not too bad at all. Well, Dave, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Thank you, and we'll see you.
Absolute pleasure, Harry.
I'll see you on Saturday then.
You're going to be there, are you?
Oh yeah, I'll be there. I'll be down the front.
Fantastic. Then we'll talk Saturday.
We'll see
Thank
you
you
there.
very much.
Thank
Been a
you.
pleasure.